Hello everyone, I am the Bandit Kirby, and welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be continuing my older Commander spotlights by discussing my take on Vhati il-Dal. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel at no extra cost to you. But the very best way you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck techs, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You can also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always just support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Vhati is a 3/3 human warrior for 2 generic, 1 black, and 1 green. When you tap him, you can make target creature have either 1 power or 1 toughness. I absolutely loved this card when it came out, since it could be used to either kill big creatures or nerf them before they hit you. However, with the way times have changed since then, this now affects the base power or the base toughness. So if the creature has any buffs applied to it, they'd be applied after the base change. Fortunately, this also works for debuffs, so creatures that have a -1 toughness will have that applied after the base toughness changed, which is where Vhati really shines. Granted, thanks to power creep, we now have cards like Maha its Feathers Knight that apply that effect to all creatures opponents control as a static ability. Naturally, it's included in the 99 of this deck, but it just goes to show how times have changed since the earlier days of Magic. At least having Vhati at the helm gives you access to green, and it's a more niche and obscure commander, so you get the hipster bonus points. Although, to be fair, it could be said that Vhati is a power-crept Sorcerer's Queen, since this one makes a creature 0/2, which isn't as easy to kill as giving it 1 toughness with Vhati. But that can be debated since the Queen is much easier to cast and gives 0 power and 2 toughness. This is why it is also in the 99 of this deck along with Maha. I don't got time to debate about power creep in such a complex game, so if I can run them all, I'll just run them all. Now this is going to be a straightforward your friends are going to somewhat hate you deck. That's because you'll be the one in control of which creatures get to stay alive in a game. Naturally, this hand on the button will prevent opponents from swinging into you without any plan, as well as being able to get rid of any aggravating utility creature on the board. To that end, Gul'Dra's Assassin, Cabal Torturer, Fall Presence, Liliana the Last Hope, Screams from Within, Disciple of Tevesh Zat, Grandmother Sendir, Liliana Deathwielder, and Vilis Broker of Blood are all included as ways to give a creature enough negative toughness to kill it after activating Vhati. You only need to level up the Assassin once for it to be able to tap for 1 black to give a creature -2/-2 until end of a turn. Sometimes that's already enough to potentially kill any utility creature in play, but with Vhati, outright kill it. Same with Cabal Torturer, Disciple of Tevesh Zat, and Grandmother Sendir. Apart from the Disciple, you pay mana and tap these to give a creature a -1 toughness, which will hopefully kill it thanks to Vhati, even indestructible creatures. Shout out to Homelands for continuing to give me obscure yet useful creatures like Grandmother Sendir. I don't think I'd ever cut her from this Vhati deck. Foul Presence turns a creature into something like these last mentioned, but it also gives it -1/-1 while attached. That's fine, just enchant a creature with a toughness greater than 1. Screams from Within is another aura, but you attach this to an opponent's creature. Then, when that creature dies, you return this aura back to the battlefield onto another creature. Absolutely busted here. Once in play, this is a free way to kill any creature later targeted by Vhati. So good. Last but not least are the Lilianas. The Last Hope gives negative toughness with its positive loyalty ability. This deck doesn't self-mill, but being able to recover a key creature from your graveyard with her -2 ability is still good enough to consider using it. The emblem doesn't really do much here since the deck doesn't have any zombies, so she's mostly here for the first ability. Similarly to Deathwielder, her positive loyalty ability will kill a creature targeted by Vhati. Her -3 ability also helps us kill multiple creatures in a turn, since it can kill something already with a -1/-1 counter while we kill another creature somehow else. Her ultimate is crazy in the late game after we've killed a bunch of creatures. Special mention to how busted Vilis is in this deck. You can activate him multiple times since it doesn't require tapping. And while the ability requires mana and life, using the life will also draw you cards. However, you'll draw cards whenever you lose life, regardless of the reason. It's also an 8/8 flyer, so once an opponent has no blockers for it, you can deal massive damage each combat step too. Amazing card here, even if it does cost a ton of mana to cast. Illness in the Ranks and Karavek the Spiteful, Knight of Souls Betrayal are even better than the previous list because these are static effects, so there's no need to activate them. Use them only during your turn, etc. While the first one could be quite niche, token decks are pretty common, so this can be utterly brutal against the right deck, hosing them pretty hard, especially against soldier, goblin, and elf decks. The other three affect all creatures, not just tokens, so they might be more useful in the end. Keep in mind that Karavik and the legendary enchantment also hit our own creatures. Fortunately, it won't kill all of them, especially Vhati, who'd still survive. But combined with Maha, its Feathers Knight, and opponents won't be able to keep any of their creatures unless they pump them with other static effects with later timestamps. Golgari Charm and Warping Whale also synergize with Vhati in a pinch, but they're used mostly for their other modes. The charm can be used as a sweeper for 1/1 tokens, but it's mostly to regenerate our creatures. That being said, it can also just as well get rid of an enchantment in a pinch. The whale is used mostly to counter board wipes, and the deck has plenty of sources of colorless mana, but being able to exile a creature affected by Vhati in a pinch is pretty good too. Don't worry, Heroic Intervention and Rapid Vigor are still included in the deck in order to protect our board, so if you really needed to use another mode for the charm or the whale, go for it. Dealing 1 damage is also a way to get rid of creatures, albeit not indestructible ones. So Desert, Pathway Arrows, Viridian Longbow, Quambach Witches, Acorn Catapult, Bullwhip, Staff of Nin, Noxious Field, and Pestilence are amazing pingers that do just that, and maybe more. The Desert doesn't even take up a slot on the deck and helps with casting Warping Whale. The only downside to this land is the timing restriction. The creature can only be targeted at the end of combat step and only if it attacked, so if it swung at us, we'd need to take the damage first before killing it. However, we can also kill the creature that attacks someone else, so remember to keep that in mind too. Both equipment turn the equipped creature into a pinger, making them an instant friend to Vhati, so their use here is quite apparent. The Witches, Catapult, and Bullwhip are pinger themselves, helping deal with creatures weakened by Vhati. Granted, an opponent then chooses what to deal 1 damage with the Witches afterwards. Hopefully we don't have any 1 toughness creatures of our own then. However, with the way it's worded, you can collude with a different opponent. For example, you can deal 1 damage to a creature an opponent controls and then choose a different opponent to deal 1 damage to a different creature some other opponent controls. Don't forget about that. The whip can also force combat, which can have its niche uses. The staff is another activated pinger, but the fact that it draws us a card at the beginning of our upkeep is definitely an amazing bonus, which explains its hefty casting cost. The last 2 cards are enchantments that can ping all creatures at the table. While these also hit our things, they're absolutely devastating if we control Maha its Feathers Knight, since they turn into potential board wipes, especially Pestilence since we can sink as much black mana as we can to truly wipe the board. Orcish Bowmasters, Caltrops, and Barbed Foliage providing pinging damage but via triggered effects. Flashing in the Bowmasters in response to a massive card draw effect is always devastating, but you can distribute those 1 damage triggers however you like. So if you manage to have a handful of creatures be 1 toughness, you can snipe them all. Then with it in play, opponents will always be punished for any extra cards they draw afterwards, giving you even more value. Oh, and the massive Orc Army token is nothing to scoff at. The last 2 make opponents weary of swinging into us, especially if we controlled Maha its Feathers Knight. Any unbuffed attackers will die on the attacker's step of combat before blockers are even chosen. However, they're so good with Vhati since you can kill at least 1 attacker thanks to him. Cards like Arcane Lighthouse, Detection Tower, and Bonds of Mortality ensure we're able to target opponents' creatures with both Vhati and the negative toughness or damage-dealing targeted abilities. Without Shroud, Hexproof, and/or Indestructibility, we can kill anything. As a bonus, the first 2 are lands that don't take up slots in the deck. Last but not least is Tree of Perdition. This one is possibly the best card in the deck for beating opponents because it, well, kills opponents. Give it 1 toughness with Vhati and then target an opponent, turning their life into 1. Then a simple ping effect kills them. Super brutal. Then you can do it again in a future turn. Speaking of future turns, using Vhati multiple times a turn or throughout a full turn will do wonders to killing off threats or annoyances. While equipped with Illusionist Bracers, you're able to hit 2 creatures with each activation. Granted, if you're not killing them, but with multiple pinging or -1 toughness effects, you can kill 2 creatures at once. The same can be achieved with untapping him multiple times in a turn. To that end, the deck is running Instill Energy, Nature's Chosen, Sting the Glinting Dagger, Thornbite Staff, Sword of the Parons, Patriarch's Seal, Sarath the Viper's Fang, Quest for Renewal, and Seedborn Muse. All these provide some kind of untapping function, with the first 2 auras allowing us to untap the enchanted creature once per turn. Once per turn is all we need if we can activate Vhati once a turn or twice a turn if enchanted by both. Sting also untaps him once per turn if he's tapped before the combat step. It also gives him +1/+1 and haste as a nice bonus. The staff also untaps as a triggered effect, but is possibly one of the best ones here since it has the potential of doing so multiple times in a turn. If there's a static global -1/-1 effect in play, then Vhati equipped with Thornbite Staff will potentially kill every creature in play under your opponent's control. He'll tap to make their toughness 1, so with the static -1 toughness they'll die, untapping him to do it all over again. The sword, seal, and Sarath require activating to untap Vhati, but that's fine since the sword is a mana sink if we wanted to do it multiple times. The seal also provides mana acceleration, albeit as a mana rock, but we'll see the deck's better mana accelerants soon. Sarath provides amazing value at statically giving our other tapped creatures Death Touch and untapped creatures Hexproof. This means that the pingers will be killers since their 1 damage will come from a source with Death Touch, so she'll turn those creatures into real threats regardless of Vhati. Then any creatures that are untapped will have Hexproof. She's absolutely amazing here. The last 2 untap all of our creatures each untap step, with special mention to Seedborn Muse, Commander All-Star. Being able to untap our pingers, negative toughness effects, and Vhati each turn provides massive interaction on our end. Like I said, creatures on opponents' boards will be few and far between. On the topic of interaction, the deck is still running non-synergistic pieces of interaction because you can never be too careful. While creatures aren't a problem for us, other things will be. To that end, Assassin's Trophy, Beast Within, Maelstrom Pulse, Windgrace's Judgment, and Casualties of War are included as the best catch-all effects here. The first 3 hit 1 target while the last 2 hit multiple targets, making them amazing in multiplayer games. Bojuka Bog and Boggart Trawler are included to not help Reanimator decks. Last thing we need are opponents recovering creatures we spent a long time getting rid of. As a bonus, neither of these take up a slot in the deck if you use the Boggart as a land if you miss your land drop. As for dealing against targeted effects directed our way, Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, Champion's Helm, and Mithril Coat are included just for that. The deck can still function without Vhati, but these are still good to protect him and or any other key creatures you need to fulfill the main plan. As for card advantage and mana acceleration, the deck makes do with both synergistic and non-synergistic effects. For drawing cards, Morbid Opportunist, Death Reap Ritual, Massacre Girl, Known Killer, High Society Hunter, and Harvester of Souls help with just that. These cards care about creatures dying in one way or another and draws a card depending on the situation. Some of these are better than others, but with so many creatures we're killing and in so many different ways, you're bound to draw into a ton of cards thanks to them. As a bonus, Massacre Girl 2.0 gives our creatures Wither. So many pingers we have will be giving -1/-1 counters instead, making them even better. Not just against indestructible creatures we're giving 1 toughness to either, since it'll be incremental enfeeblement. Reliquary Tower is included precisely because of the potential of drawing so many cards at once. It doesn't take up a slot in the deck either, plus helps with casting Warping Whale. Phyrexian Arena and Black Market Connections draws cards at the beginning of our upkeep at the cost of life. As a bonus, the second one also doubles as a mana accelerant since we can also give a life to create a treasure token. Fortunately, Farseek, Nature's Lore, 3 Visits into the North, Rampant Growth, Cultivate, and Rukadama's Reach don't require life to accelerate our mana production. Land-based ramp is king in Commander, and with a deck containing more than a handful of high-value spells, you're going to need your cheap sources of land-based ramp. Last but not least is Soul Ring, but that's to be expected. Getting a turn 2 Vhati isn't to scoff at, although who will be dropping a massive creature turn 2? Looking at you, Reanimator decks. The rest of the deck is just the rest of the lands. Apart from the previously mentioned lands, the deck is running all 7 fetch lands, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, and Yavimaya Cradle of Growth for color fixing, with Haunted Mire, Overgrown Tomb, Underground Mortuary, Woodland Chasm, Deathcap Glade, Tainted Wood, Undergrowth Stadium, Command Tower, and Ancient Tomb, as well as 5 of each snow-covered basics for Into the North and the basic land wrap effects in the deck. As with all of my deck techs, you can build your mana base according to your budget. Whether you include more expensive cards or even cheaper cards is up to you. You do you. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Vhati il-Dal. He's definitely an oldie but a goodie and will more than likely turn heads when revealed as your commander. People will definitely want to see him and then realize how good he is before then seeing how really good he is. So you'll definitely score some hipster points as well as earning the intrigue of your pod. Is he the strongest? No. But is he amazing? For sure. If you're interested in the deck list of the Spicy Brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the Brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. I also want to thank those who voted on seeing older commanders instead of me returning to continue with the latest ones. Thanks for your patience while I took my vacation. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of the Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Meta Kirby, and happy brewing.